Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. We are coming off of a week hiatus because last week I was out of the office for family camp at Lake Poncet, and I love being up there. Lake Poncet Camp is definitely a home away from home for me. It's always been a very special place in my life, and it's a really special thing for me to get to go every year with my family and to see now my kids really having a connection to that place, similar to how I did. And this year, it was actually even more fun because the first few days that we were up there and we were at the retreat center for the clergy family getaway down in Lower Camp were two mini camps that were happening. And it just so happened that a lot of our families from First United Methodist signed up for those mini camps. So for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning, 18 people from Yankton were at Lake Poncet Camp. We also had two more people at camp up at Wesley Acres for a grand total of 20 people attending camp last week. So woohoo, exciting. Yeah, if I had an applause button, I would push it because that's a really big deal. Camping ministry is unlike any ministry that we have, and it's one of the most honestly effective experiences for people in their life of faith, especially young people, because there's something about going away to camp, leaving the distractions of home behind, that really helps people to encounter God. And I've seen that over and over again in my years, and I realized that I've been out at camp at Lake Poncet Camp in some way, shape, or form for 21 years, which I'll be honest, it made me feel a little old that I realized that I started working at camp 21 years ago and that the people that I was counseling, or I wasn't counseling at the time, I was staff member at the time. So 21 years ago, I started as a staff member, and then I think it was in like 2010, something like that, that I came back, 2009, came back and started to counsel camps. And I did that for multiple years as well. And now here I am, bringing my own children to camp. It's amazing how those things kind of cycle through. But it was fun. It was fun to get to see and to share that place and experience with people that I've come to really love here in Yankton, and to see the next generation fall in love with that incredible place. And again, it's not even so much about the place, although you cannot beat the sunset over the lake at Lake Poncet, especially when you're at the outdoor chapel and you have the cross, and then you're looking out onto the lake with the sunset off to the west. It's beautiful. And it's hard not to feel the divine in those moments. And so um, I always come away from that time, like there's part of you that's exhausted because you've been at camp and, you don't sleep the same. And we had all our kids in like basically what was like a hotel room. And so, it's not, I never count on good sleep when I'm at camp, but I also come away feeling very refreshed and very renewed and very like I've remembered a piece of myself once again. Again, if you've heard me talk at all, you know that Lake Poncet and camping ministry is part of what got me into ministry. And the love for camping started prior to my time with the United Methodist. When I was growing up, the church that I went to sent kids to camp once. Like I think it was like fourth or fifth grade or something. You got to go to Nisodak up in Waubay. And I remember going, no, it had to be like sixth grade. It had to be like sixth grade. And I remember going and loving it and asking them when I was there, how old do I have to be to come and work here? Because I went to camp once and knew like this is the place for me. This is what I like. I loved the music, I loved the people, I loved the activities, I loved, it was my first time ever being in a canoe, it was my first time kind of doing some hiking things, and I fell in love with all of it. And so it's no surprise that that's what I spent my college years doing in the summers, was working at camp. Lake Ponce Camp became a big part of my life, and I think a big part of the reason I'm Methodist now is the people that I encountered and the experiences that I had out there. And so for me, it very much is a homecoming. And my prayer is that anyone who goes there, that's how they feel to any of our camps. I mean, Lake Ponce has a special place in my life, but I know for others, Storm Mountain or Wesley Acres really holds those special places as well. And it's my hope that you feel that way. One of the things that came out of the time at Lake Ponce was I was visiting with so we had, like I said, 18 people at Lake Ponce, including other adults that had come with their children to be shepherds. And we shared in meal times together and campfire and things like that. And at the final day, we finally gathered for one picture together, which was like herding cats. It was nearly impossible to get everybody together. But one of the things that was getting expressed is like, I want to come back here, but I want to come back here in more of a retreat fashion. Like I'd love to come spend time out here and retreat and it got me thinking because in my previous appointment, one of the things I did do was plan a weekend retreat around the topic of prayer at Lake Ponce. And so I kind of threw that out there as an option, and there was some traction with that idea of, what would it look like to just throw it out to our church that if you'd like to go up for a few days, maybe over a weekend, and we can do prayer practices, have some time together, have some time alone for reflection and things like that. If that is interesting to you, please let me know, because again, this is something that I have already developed. And so I would be happy to kind of put that in progress and, get that in motion, but I don't want to do that unless I know that I'm going to have people that are wanting to do it. And so if that is you, that you're like, that actually sounds kind of nice or interesting, or the topic of prayer, like we did prayer because prayer is a good renewal topic, but also prayer is something that, it's kind of hard to pin down. There's a lot of different ways to pray, and sometimes we're not aware of that, or we might be aware of it, but it's hard to like introduce a new spiritual discipline into your already chaotic life. And so you need kind of time to try things out. Retreat works for all of that. So it's very practical as prayer can be. I think maybe is the way I'll say it. Again, it would be an adult retreat, and it would be very much focused on reflection, connection, and renewal. So if that's something you're interested in, again, please let me know. I did have some that while they're at camp really felt like that could be something that they would latch onto and want to do. And again, I'm more than happy. If you have ideas like that of things that you think we should do, let me know, because either, maybe I already have some resources around that we can get going, or, if anything, like let me be the #1 cheerleader for it. So, so I just want to put that out there from my experience at camp this last week. Again, such a blessing, such a blessing. But I'm also really grateful to be back because we've got exciting things coming down the line. I jumped back in. We do have a funeral this week. A gentleman by the name of Glenn Dringman. He is a Yankton native, but then lived other places his whole life. But he wants to come home to be buried and to have a service. And I think that's really beautiful. And so we'll be doing that this week. The other thing I jumped back into, I should say, is VBS planning. I can be totally honest when I say that this is the most I've ever invested into a VBS in my life. When I was a youth pastor, I avoided VBS like the plague because children scared me. I'm not lying to you here. In my 20s, I didn't know what to do with little children. And so when it was VBS time at that church, I disappeared. I would lock myself in my office or I'd work from home. I was just like, it's a little too much for me. But once I started having kids, I became a little more interested in VBS, and children didn't intimidate me so much. But we've always had really capable children's ministry people kind of taking the realms and really running with things. But this year we're doing something a little different. We still have our capable children's ministry people running things and figuring things out and organizing, but we're not using like a pre-planned, pre-boxed curriculum this year. It's not a pull it out of the box and set it up and follow the script and there you go. Instead, we are working with three churches. Well, we are one of the three. So us, the UCC Church, and Trinity Lutheran by Burger King. And we are working together to build out a VBS this year. And at first I was like, that sounds like a lot of work. And you know what? I wasn't wrong. But what I didn't realize or didn't take into consideration was how fulfilling that work would be and how much fun it would be. And so the children and the pastors of those churches have been working together. And so they've kind of got the basic structure of VBS figured out. The theme overall is God's love is everywhere, which I mean, you know that I'm down for that theme. And then left it to the pastors to really flesh that out and to really ground it in scripture and to find ways to teach. But the other thing, so we've been working on that. We're going to really focus on actually the Samaritan woman at the well is going to be our main theme story this year, and looking at love in people, places, and things, which God's love showing up in people, places, and things, which shows up in that story. So it's really cool. And so I'm excited about that. And I've been dabbling in some of that. But the part that I was working on this week with Pastor Michael Jordan, not the basketball player, he's the associate pastor over at Trinity, is the opening times. And we've just been having so much fun with it. And I'm so excited to like actually do those things. And so yeah, we're having fun with it. And it's just really great to collaborate and to really come up with something that is truly um, truly us and truly embedded in who we are as these three churches serving and loving Yankton and our children. And we have so much in common. And so it's just been super exciting and fun. So make sure that you get your kids signed up. I know as a parent, because I am one of them, that if I don't have it like immediately in front of me, and if I don't do it as soon as I get it, it gets lost in the shuffle. Or I think that I've done it because I've thought about it. And so don't forget to sign up. I'll have Tiffany put the link in the description here so that if you are like watching this or if you have grandchildren, you can just send this video and be like, there's the link for the VBS is right in that video comment. And then we can get that done. There is going to be some sort of incentive for getting a certain amount of kids. I haven't heard for sure what that is. I don't know if it's been finalized. Last year, it was a competition between us and UCC of who could register more kids, which we won that competition. And so Jacqueline got a sundae made on her head, which looked disgusting to me. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that whatever the competition is, whatever the incentive is, that I come out on top. So, but at the end of the day, it's not about winning or losing. It's about getting kids to have this fun experience and to learn more about God and to know that they are loved. We're also going to be sharing in a worship service that weekend. So this is happening the weekend, I think, prior to Riverboat Days. It is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Sunday is the 11th. Saturday's the 10th, Friday, I can do math. Friday's the 9th, Thursday's the 8th. 8th through 10th is VBS. And then the 11th, we're having a joint worship service down at Riverside Park in one of the shelters. And again, like what an incredible opportunity for us to witness to the community toward the unity of Christians and that we can work together and that we love each other and that you know we're all in this together, right? I don't want to start singing the High School Musical song, but I do think it's important for us to be visible when doing things like that, just so that people get a different sense of you know, just because we don't all agree exactly on everything doesn't mean that we don't have love for each other and we can't work together, because we certainly can. And so I'm very excited about that. If it is weather is not cooperating with us, which happened to us last year for VBS worship, it will be at the UCC church. If the weather is not cooperating, because all of VBS will be down at Riverside Park, but if on any of those days the weather is not cooperating during VBS time, it'll be at Trinity. But if the worship is unable to be in the park, that'll be at UCC. So no worship here at UMC on August 11th. You either have to go to the park or you'll have to go to the UCC church. But we will communicate that in every way possible if when we get closer to it, to remind you so you remember, so you can support our children. It's going to be so much fun. I hope that you have been having some fun this summer. Last week, is that right? You know, do you ever have it where you're in the summer, you can't remember days anymore? We had the garden blessing, which was great. We had an incredible turnout, but it was a beautiful day, and it was before the bugs showed up. So, but thank you all who came out for that to bless our community garden. We still are looking for people to sign up and care for it for a week at a time. I do know that they've been struggling a little bit this year with like tomatoes and things. So if you are a gardener and you might have some tricks up your sleeves, would you maybe consider signing up and kind of seeing what you could do? I think that would be helpful. If I knew anything about keeping plants alive, I would do it, but that is not my strong suit. That is not my God-given gift. Not at all. Speaking of gifts, oh, this is a good transition. We've been doing this series called Bible Stories for Grown-ups, which I hope you've been loving. I've been loving it. And when I, exit greet, a lot of you have been telling me like, I've never heard or never thought about that story in that way before, or oh, that makes sense. Like this has never sat right with me, or this point has never made sense to me, but this helps me understand it in a way that makes sense. I'm glad. The whole idea is, oftentimes we get these stories without much or a very simplistic understanding of them, or sometimes not a helpful understanding. But really digging into the context, digging into how this was understood by the people who it was originally written for, things start to kind of unfold in a new way for us. And so, I hope that it's been a useful and interesting series so far. We are moving to the New Testament this week. So we've been doing Old Testament stories. We've been doing Noah. We've been doing the binding of Isaac, which I'm still like, I can't believe I preached on that. We did Jonah. I almost said Jonah the whale, but we don't actually think it was a whale. I did argue once in a sermon, though, that I thought it might be a whale shark because whale sharks are as large as a school bus, and they are actually a fish, where whales are not. They are mammals. And I know that for a fact because I had to look it up on Google this morning for my children. You want to know what my mornings are like? It's getting pestered with a million questions about things that you don't know where they come from. Anyway, this coming week, we are going to be looking at the parable of the talents. And I just got to warn you now. This approach that we're going to be taking, I came across it, or it came into my radar a few years ago and completely shifted my understanding of this parable. And I've been kind of waiting to see if it's going to come back in the cycle or the right time to bring it up again. And then it was in this book and in this series. And so I just need you to be ready to have your view of this parable turned upside down. And it's going to feel weird and it's going to feel uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, you're going to be like, you know what? Yeah, because it really didn't make sense before, but now it will. So I'm excited because I love that kind of stuff. I love digging in and asking the questions and having those aha moments. That was one of the things I loved about youth ministries because so often I was teaching stories to the youth that they've never heard before. And so there was always a lot of aha moments. I don't get that a lot as much with adults. And so, but this series has been a little bit of that, and it's very fun for me. And I hope it's fun for you too. So we're going to be doing that. And what else do we have coming up? We are still in the process. We're in the process this week of interviewing for our open positions. I believe that the only one that has not had an application turned in for yet is our Kids Hope, which is probably of the three positions, the least amount of work. And so if that's something that God might be laying on your heart, please consider turning in an application for that. It honestly, there's a little more work right away in the fall and right at the end of the school year, but during the year, it's very minimal. And it is such an impactful program that we do that I would hate to see us lose it because we didn't have someone who could oversee it. And so please consider if that's something you're able to do, applying for that. So I think with that, clearly, I have missed all of you. I'm too excited today. I'm a little jabbery, but oh, and one final thing, because I didn't do a podcast last week, but July 1st marked this is the longest appointment that I have had in my career as of yet. So in my career, I served Mitchell first as the associate for 2 years, and then Beersford Zion for 4 years. And I am now in my 5th year at First United Methodist. Can you believe it? I've already been here over 4 years. It feels like just yesterday. But when we came, we only had 2 kids, and Ethan was a baby, and Ben was Abigail's age. So I guess it has been a minute, but I still can't believe that. It feels like it's just flown by. But thank you for letting me come back again. And I'm grateful to still be serving in Yankton. And I love this church. I love this community. And I'm really excited for what God is doing because I'm just amazed. Every week I look out and there are new people in our congregation. There are smiles and joy and connections and people trying new things. And it just does my heart so good. And so uh, thank you. Thank you for keeping me for my longest appointment to date. And I hope that it goes on for a while. But with that, I will leave you for this week. And I hope to see you in worship when we talk about the parable of the talents. God bless. Thank you for listening to this episode of What's Going On. We'd love to have you join us for worship here at the church on Sundays at 10 a.m. You can also find us online via our website at firstumcyankton.org or search for us on YouTube.